Baldur's Gate, a sprawling city filled with all the walks of life of Faerun. Gnomes, dwarves, humans, tieflings, each one with their plans and occupations. Merchants, paladins, scoundrels, the list goes on. Beset with a calamity the likes the people of Baldur's Gate haven't seen in an age, you decide the fate of these fair folk. Do you save them? Do you rule over them? Or do you paint the streets crimson with their ichor? The choice is yours in Baldur's Gate 3. But before you go picking, you have to ask yourself, how innocent are these people? In this video today, we're going to talk about the history of one of the grandest cities on the Sword Coast, and through that, discuss whether or not Baldur's Gate is a bastion of scum and villainy, or a safe haven of the righteous. I mean, with an alias like the City of Blood, things are already getting off to a dubious start. Hopefully at the end of this video though, you can decide, is Baldur's Gate actually worth saving? To understand the current state of Baldur's Gate, we have to first understand the history of its founding, and it is a wild one. The gate started as a humble fishing village named Lockley, and within the mud-caked and shit-stained streets of this small hamlet, Ball, back when he was mortal, performed his first murder. And this is like the D&D equivalent of building on an ancient Native American burial ground. Oh, did I forget to mention that the village of Lockley gets its name because it was built over the site where a hill giant named Locke died? Malice is just salted into the earth of this place, and it's not even a major landmark on a map yet. Lockley was located right on the mouth of the Chionthar River, with the Cloakwood to the south, close to the main road of the Sword Coast, which would eventually turn into the Coast Way. Over time, Lockley would become a prime place for privateers, pirates, blackguards, TikTok influencers, and other forms of scoundrels out of Grey Harbor, a secret haven just up the river Chionthar from Lockley. From the village, the pirates would waylay vessels traveling up the Sword Coast, and this grew both the infamy but also the wealth of the village, increasing the size of its dock and even leading to the creation of a shipyard. The two locations, Grey Harbor and Lockley, eventually grew to become, or at least meet, each other. Both still exist in present-day Baldur's Gate, the harbor as one of the largest and most important ports on the coast, and the former name of the city represented as a street name, and if it's anything like the San Fernando Valley in California, there's probably a shitty iPhone repair shop on every corner. This is around the time of the great hero Balduran. You see his likeness all throughout the city as glorious statues of a fearless captain that plied the seas, amassing large amounts of treasure. Using his wealth, Balduran commissioned the creation of a giant stone wall to ring Grey Harbor, the location he once called home. Before he could see the work finished, he vanished after his second voyage, never to be seen or heard from again. But this further cements my point, and no pun intended with the whole Stonewall thing, that we have a city of pirates that grew its wealth off of the misfortune of others, and is then backed by some dubious benefactor that vanishes. Okay, cool, why don't you just fly me out to Dubai and take pictures of my butthole while you're at it? And across this initial 1,000 or so years of Baldur's Gate's history, we have a city that is used for nothing other than robbing people or practicing nefarious deeds. So if the question were to be asked, should you save the city at its current stage? Nay, 0 stars on a Yelp review. But back on track here. After the disappearance of Balduran, the locals took over the construction of the wall around Grey Harbor and extended it to their own plots of land rather than just simply the harbor. More people migrated to the city, especially the protection that the walls afforded them. The older buildings and streets became what we know as Old Town today, and the new inhabitants that popped up as the wall's construction expanded settled in what became Heapside. Sometime between all that, the city takes on the name of Baldur's Gate, and no longer the two separate entities of Grey Harbor and Lockley. And this didn't mean that everything was all peaches and cream though. The former associates of Balduran, as well as the pirates of Grey Harbor, were paying an exorbitant tax to the merchants and property owners of Old Town. The carts going from the port out of the city had to travel through Old Town first, and this tariff, as it were, was starting to really piss off the really not so nice people in Grey Harbor and Heapside. Eventually, this escalated into the tax revolt, and the combined might of the smugglers, pirates, and ne'er-do-wells laid siege to the keep in Old Town named High Hall. The resulting treaty was struck between the former captains of the harbor and the farmer lords of Old Town. These captains would be installed as leaders dubbed Dukes of Baldur's Gate. This is the beginning of the Council of Four, the true ruling body of the city. Depending on where you are at in the third game, you know about this council and how the Dukes interact with it, and to keep the video spoiler free at least. So again, we have not just simply the nobility but now the ruling class of the Gate steeped in blood and Barbary, a clever reference to the Barbary coast, that is now going to control everything of the budding city. Sure, you have simple farmers and people looking to live honest lives, but the true wealth and appeal of the soon-to-be metropolis is in the misdeeds of a whole half of the location, the half that is now running the show. You can see where this is going, but as the world goes on, and the nation of Amun is established just to the south of Baldur's Gate over the Cloud Pass, the city would explode in both popularity and wealth. Old Town, a hub of traders, former farmers, and growing aristocracy, was renamed to the Upper City, and Heapside matches this with its new title of the Lower City. Both locations would grow their relationship over the years as wealth poured in through the trade coming in and out of the major port and former Grey Harbor. Baldur's Gate grew to become the most powerful city in the Western Heartlands, and in the years of the Blade Horde, they would take the side of the forces of good in the Lord's Alliance against the ravening legion of invading orcs, sending their strongest general, Eldrith, to assist. This all sounds like a great redemption arc, right? Well, if you played Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, then you'll know who Eldrith is, because she double-crosses everyone and betrays both the Lord's Alliance and Baldur's Gate. Eldrith the Betrayer was eventually defeated, and her Padawan, Mordok Silonmayer, the antagonist of the second Dark Alliance game, picked up her mantle. And if you think that he was also defeated because he was the main bad guy in the game, you'd be absolutely correct. But so one of the biggest and brightest stars of the growing city is corrupted by her own pride due to her undefeated track record as a general. The story is just writing itself here. I don't think I even need to tell you what's about to happen, but spoiler alert, it's like riding a toboggan down a poop mountain without brakes. And around this point in the timeline, the Flaming Fists choose Baldur's Gate as the base of its operations throughout the many wars and conflicts of the era. Dark Alliance takes place just slightly after Baldur's Gate 1. So this is the same time as Sarevok's grand plot to start a war between the Gate and neighboring Amun. Back to the Flaming Fists though. As they're a big portion of the third game, it's why we really want to bring them into this. The Flaming Fists aren't some altruistic group of paladins, nay. They're a mercenary company who sells their swords to the highest bidder. And they got their start by selling their swords at a discount to the smallest countries that they could, such as Sembia or Tethir, that just needed a military arm. The leader of this company? Elton, a Grand Duke of Baldur's Gate. Remember the dukeship, the dukesty, the dukedness of the Gate is derived from extortion and piracy, just so we're clear on what that title actually entails. But Elton wasn't trying to simply strike it rich as a mercenary captain, he was also trying to create his own sovereign country to be the ruler of. Through time, this all changes, but the roots of the fist is that it is of greed and power. Even in the years after, the Fists are riddled with corruption, coups d'etats, and other outward evil acts. In Baldur's Gate 3, the Marshal of the Flaming Fist is Uldur Ravengard. Prior to that, it's the canonical representation of the protagonist of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Abdel Adrian. You know, a fucking ball spawn. And not to say that he's inherently evil, but the capacity is there. After the events of both games, he becomes the leader of the Fists over the last Marshal, Grand Duke Valarkin. You know, a lycanthrope that led a massive coup against the Gate and tried to overthrow it. And this goes back to my statement about everything being absolutely screwed from the head down in this city. Mercenary companies, ruling bodies, even their founders. Pirates, knaves, bandits, thieves, any word for anyone that isn't chill. The last bit of history you should know is about the Parliament of Peers. After the aforementioned coup of Grand Duke Valarkin, this parliament is established by the last remaining counselor to survive the coup, Duke Portier. Now you're thinking, great, we have an established democracy where people are voted into parliament, and then parliament elects the new dukes onto the council of four. No more bought and paid for positions. Amazing. Stop, you're a fool. This is Baldur's Gate. Duke Portier chose 50 of the most trusted citizens, with only a third coming from the lower city and then the rest from the upper city's noble, rich families. One step further is that the titles were hereditary. Expanding the council itself was done at the council's behest and only from people they chose. So this entire system isn't even a meritocracy. It was based on who had enough power and influence to buy or get themselves placed to be on the parliament. And from there, it's just a matter of buying enough support to get yourself elected as Duke. So it's no fucking wonder that a pompous hairdresser like Gortash was able to establish himself so well. All he needed was money and a silver tongue. Nine Fingers Keen, the current leader of the Thieves Guild, even remarks how so much of the parliament is bought by herself and the guild. So when you waltz into the lower city for the first time in the game, mind flayers are really pretty far from the overall problems going on in the gate. But with all this corruption and underhandedness going on at the head of the snake, surely the people are much better and the true beating heart of the city, right? Well, I mean, you're not entirely incorrect. Baldur's Gate is a very powerful metropolis, located at a strong point of trade for the Sword Coast. While there are tons of misdeeds done at every level in the city, there is a strong code of laws and a strict one that is adhered to throughout the entire city. The Watch is the local police force of the Gate, and despite so many institutions being a shit show, the Watch is actually known for being a near incorruptible entity, with almost all of its leaders being people of upstanding virtue. The Watch is a legit bastion within the city walls, but that's it. Their policing ends where the walls do. From there, the Flaming Fists take up the further enforcement of things right outside the walls and what have you. The laws are deliberately confusing too, which means that it's easy for the Fists to extort citizens whenever they find an infraction that results in either a fine or jail time. Another point of the people of the city is that Baldur's Gate has always been adjacent to many of the wider spanning conflicts or world events, leading to a large population of refugees. Because of this, there is a vastly diverse demographic of peoples within the Gate. One of its strengths, no doubt. While the city is predominantly human, you can find dwarves, elves, gnomes, and even drow, which is rare outside of the Underdark, of course. Unfortunately, though, the patriarchs, or rich elite within the upper city, hold all of the power over the disenfranchised individuals within the lower city, holding the keys to the kingdom, as it were, through the clutches of the parliament, as illustrated earlier. One last big note on the population of the city is the prevalence and strength of the Thieves Guild. The Thieves Guild has been one of the strongest entities within the Gate. Remember how I said the Watch is nearly incorruptible? Well, there are members of the Watch that are on the payroll of the guild, even individuals within the Fists, and we already talked about the guild owning huge swaths of the Parliament of Peers. There's nothing this group doesn't touch by either bribing their way in or offering a kickback to look the other way. It's no wonder that it's such a wide-spanning organization, because it provides security and employment to the otherwise downtrodden lower class of the city. The guild's previous name was Xantum's Guild, ruled by an individual named Xantum, oddly enough, during the events of Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. It was actually a front for the Zhentarim to act freely within the Gate. So the Thieves Guild, which has actually been central to nearly all the games in some way, shape, or form, has a pretty dark past, just like the city it calls home. All this comes around, though, to answer the big question: should you save Baldur's Gate? Again, to keep this video relatively spoiler-free, you'll be faced with that question as you spelunk through the many acts of the third game, and it's the basic driving force for all the games, really. With all the evidence I've divulged to you, how comfortable do you really feel keeping this autocratic oligarchy online and running at full steam? Are you content with the lesser evil of a bought-out government making decisions to line their own pockets and not the well-being of their citizens? And I'm not referring to America, thank you very fucking much. When I look at the humble beginnings of Lockley, steeped in the blood of Baal's first murder and the privateering of pirates out of Grey Harbor, the eventual creation of a wall by Balduran who mysteriously vanishes into history, a revolt that results in the establishment of said oligarchy, the extreme corruption from the head down of this city, I have to really ask myself, if the cards are down, would I save Baldur's Gate? Would any of us save Baldur's Gate? Is the life of the innocent few worth it to allow the poison at the top to keep spreading throughout the Sword Coast and beyond? This is a question I've asked myself plenty of times, as Shadowheart's striking resemblance to every single woman who has ever broken my heart stays my hand nearly every time through her redemption arc. Or it's the crass and abrasive behavior of Asterion that melts away over time to reveal the broken remnants of an individual who is struggling for purpose and freedom amidst an unlife of tyranny and usury. Or perhaps it's the childlike playfulness of Karlach's personality as her interactions flirt around you with a fervent zeal for what's right, even after being betrayed and cast down so many times in her life. It could be the gripping stories of Minsk, who has been a not-so-silent passenger in time over the many generations he has seen come and go from the city as a warden of justice in the name of the mighty Boo. Maybe it's watching Lae'zel wrestle with a draconic upbringing whose dogma starts to get peeled back as the truth of her reality is revealed, and thus the revelation of her character. Baldur's Gate isn't perfect, nor are the people that inhabit it. Truly, there's no place in all of Faerun except for maybe, I don't know, a Temple of Tyr or some other lawful good patron. But Baldur's Gate is home. It's home for many of the other characters you interact with throughout all the games, good or bad. You aren't just saving a city, you're saving the person fleeing from the clutches of a hag, the citizen who can't find their parents, a wayward familiar looking for its master, the refugees being exploited. You're saving individuals. Home is hard to define as good or evil, but it's somewhere you'll always fight to protect, and it's a place that has earned its redemption through the many years you've spent there. Whether we're talking about the digital haven that Baldur's Gate has afforded you throughout its many iterations or years, or your own home, you owe it to yourself to truly ask yourself, is Baldur's Gate worth saving? For me, it's a no-brainer. I stand by the people of Baldur's Gate time and time again. But what dark secrets from your origins are whispered into your ear? What promise of power sits just beyond your grasp? Perhaps your motivations are different from mine, but now you have the information or the ammunition to truly decide the fate of the gate. Thank you so much for watching here today, guys. This is part of a new direction I'm taking with the channel where we discuss fun questions in both game lore and history. So go ahead and let me know if there are any subjects you'd like me to discuss in the comment section below. Also, if you're enjoying this format, please let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Each one of those things is free and it does help me out a ton, while also supplying endless treats to Roman, my mini Australian crackhead. If you want to support the channel, there's a number of methods below in the description, so feel free to take a look. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.